So we're probably going to start getting a lot of questions about SNS bindings versus NNN bindings. So here I have an example of an SNS boot from Salomon. Salomon was the only one that made the SNS binding, as far as I remember, and an NNN boot from Fisher. And you can see that there's some slight differences. So an SNS binding is not going to fit an NNN boot, and an NNN boot is not going to fit an SNS binding. Now we've had a couple of questions about it because Salomon stopped making the SNS binding probably about 2 years ago and switched to NNN. And so I reached out to Salomon to ask them, so if I have a Salomon SNS binding system and I need a new boot, what's the best course of action? Other than going to the used boot market, the best course of action is to check your Salomon skis and see if they're a screw-in binding. If they're a screw-in binding, Salomon told me that they can pick up, you can go and find a ProLink Salomon NNN binding that's screw-in. So this is a ProLink binding that's sitting on a pair of roller skis that I've got. It's NNN compatible. And so if you can screw in your binding, you can go to your Salomon dealer and ask for a replacement ProLink NNN screw-in binding. The other option that you've got, depending on what kind of binding you have, is you can get mounting plates that are SNS with the drill holes compatible. So that means you can take your SNS binding off, you can put the plates on because they screw into place, and then you can put whatever binding that is able to slide onto these plates. There's two kinds of plates. So these ones that I've got are made by Fisher, and they allow the IPF Fisher slide-in bindings to go onto the skis. But as I said, go to your Salomon dealer and have them check your skis to make sure to see what the best option is to replace that binding. Now, the other way is if you have good SNS boots, but your skis have seen better days, the same applies. If you want to keep your SNS boots, you have to find a way to take the SNS binding off the ski that you've got and be able to put it on a new ski so you can still use your boot. Otherwise, the only course of action is to get new bindings, new skis, new bindings, and new boots. And that's what Salomon had said was the best course of action, because they've stopped making the SNS binding system. They've all gone to an NNN. Now the great thing is, once you've changed your binding to an NNN style, you can pick whatever boot you want. You can pick a Salomon of the new ones that are NNN. You can pick a Fisher boot because they're all NNN. You can pick a Rossi boot because they're all NNN. You can pick the boot that fits your foot, and it will fit your binding. So the tricky part is just being able to swap that binding out on your skis to make sure it fits an NNN boot. If you're local here in Invermere, the local Salomon dealer is Columbia Cycle and Ski. So make sure you stop in if you have these questions and see if and ask them about their recommendations through Salomon for the ProLink binding to make sure that you have the skis ready that you want for your Nordic season.